Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi Zevachim Kuftes. We begin right at the Mishnah on top of the Amud. Back to Hama'ala. If one takes korban material and takes it outside of the Beis Hamikdash and offers it on a mizbeach outside, he has committed a grave sin of Ma'ala B'chutz, which carries a kares / chatas consequence. Says the Mishnah, you're meant to know that this applies whether the material is part of a proper korban, a korban which is kosher, or even a korban which became pasul. And now if he takes that material outside, he is chayav. Echad kachim ksherin, whether the korban is kosher, or vechad kachim even psulim. Shoya psulim b'kodesh, provided the psul occurred in the Beis Hamikdash. Rashi explains, by this happening in the Beis Hamikdash, it's called psulim b'kodesh, which means that the korban still relates to the mizbeach somewhat. In what way? Im alula yerdu. Had they been put on the mizbeach, they're meant to stay there. You don't take them off. They still connect, they still identify, they still relate with the mizbeach. Hence, they are considered kodesh material, korban material, and therefore, if taken outside, is chayiv. So again, echad kachim ksherin, echad kachim psulin, shayu psulin b'kodesh. In all these, v'krivim b'chutz, if he takes it outside and is makriv them, chayiv. Now, how much is considered mala? Says the Mishnah, mala kazais min ha'oila, u'min ha'imurin b'chutz chayiv. One takes a kazais, in total, he's chayiv, even if the kazais was comprised of two parts. You combine some of the basar of the oila, which is meant for the mizbeach, of course, with some emurin, the fats, the intestines, which are also meant for the mizbeach. If he combines a little of this and a little of that, for total of a kazayis is chayiv, and Rashi explains how come the kula kala, because the entire animal is meant for the mizbeach. It's all considered one type of material with one destiny. As long as you have a kazayis comprised of any part of the oila, if he takes that outside, he's chayiv. Tana Rabbanan, now we look for the source. How do we know that? The din of mala b'chutz applies to all types of korban materials. Tana Rabbanan, asher yala oila oy zevach. Ainly ala oila, perhaps only an oila taken outside. Minayin l'rabbi say murei asham. What about other korban materials? The imurim of an asham, the imurei chatos, right? We have a pasuk zevach to cover all these materials as well. What about other types, which are non-animal materials? Right? The scoop out of the mincha of alavoina, the spice of the mincha, akteris, the incense of minchas kayhanim, mincha v'kayin, minchas kayin mashiach, mincha v'kayin gadol, v'avanasach, shloishas lug and yayin. Or if one pours the 3 lug of wine, which is meant to accompany a korban in the Beis Hamikdash, he does it outside. Or the water poured on sukkahs, he does it outside as well. Ushleishas lugan mayim. We have a pasuk which says, "Vel pesach oil moed lo yiviyenu." He failed to bring it to the oil moed. This covers everything that belongs in the oil moed. Kol abola pesach oil moed, meant to be brought inside. If taken outside, chayav and olav b'chutz. Okay, so we have an extensive list of various korban materials. If taken outside, he's chayav. What about materials that had become pasul of a failed korban? What about that? The Mishnah says ma'ala b'chutz applies even there. How do we know? Ve'en li elo kachim ksherim, perhaps only a proper korban. Minayin l'rabbeis pisulim. What about failed korbanos, deficient korbanos? Keep going. For example, halon kachim which were left overnight, vayetze taken out of the area. Before he did this ma'ala b'chutz, it was taken out and brought back. That becomes pasul. Va'atame, or became tummy, or something went wrong with the shchita itself. It was done with the wrong intention. It was pigul. It was shema. He had a mind to do it, the akrava in the wrong time, the wrong place. Or unauthorized individuals did the kabbalah of the dam, or did the zrika of the dam. So the carbon becomes possible. Or the dam was placed in the wrong place on the Mizbeach. Instead of upstairs, it was downstairs. Instead of on the bottom, it was on top. Instead of on the interior Mizbeach, with the exterior Mizbeach, or vice versa. By Natan Lamata, the blood meant to be placed on the bottom of the Mizbeach, Shnas Lamal, which was placed on top. By Natan Lamala, or the blood meant for the top of the Mizbeach, Shnas Lamata, placed on the bottom. Or in the wrong Mizbeach, by Natan Bachutz, meant for the outside Mizbeach, Shnas Mifnim, which was applied to the interior Mizbeach. Or vice versa, or finally we have a carbon pesach or a chatas which was processed shloi lishma, having another carbon in mind. Upesach chatas shenasna, where the blood was applied shloi lishman. What about all these deficient carbonis? Minan, how do we know they are also covered? We failed to bring them to the right place. So this covers all types of carbonis in all types of circumstances. Lasos, to consider kol miskabel pesach oil moed, all materials which are meant for the oil moed, chayav alav b'chutz, if they are taken outside, he's chayav from malav b'chutz. And the reason why we consider all these as miskabel, but pesach oil moed, fit for oil moed, even though they're deficient, because as we explained, in all these cases we say im alu lo yerdu. Although preferably they should not be put on the Mizbeach, but if they were, they stay there. They still connect, they still relate, they still identify with the Mizbeach, and as such are considered carbon materials, and if taken outside, he's chayiv. Now how much? Hamal kazayis min oila. If one is mala, even a kazayis, which is combined of two parts, some basar of the oila, and some of the emurin. He joins them together for a kazayis, takes it outside his chayiv, but only by an oila, where both components, the basar and the emurin, are both meant for the mizbeach. They both share the same fate, the same destiny, right? So you can, take a little this, a little that, combine it for the minimum, kazayis requirement. But only by the oila. Oila v'emurah in, you can combine the oila with the emurim of the oila. So the basar and the emurim can combine only by the oila. Oila v'emurah in. However, if you should do the same by a shlamim, it doesn't work, because the basar of a shlamim is meant for personal consumption, not meant for the mizbeach. Although the emurim are, but not the basar. So you can't join together half a kazayas of basar of shlamim together with a half a kazayas of emurim for the chiyuv b'chutz, for the mal b'chutz liability. Oila v'emurah in. Yeah, the basar of the oila with the emurim can combine to generate this liability. But shlamim v'emurah in, but not the basar of shlamim together with its own emurim. It's not meant for the not meant to offer the basar of shlamim on a mizbeach. It's not carbon material. It's not haktarah. It's not offerable material. Tanina lo tan rabbanon. So in fact, this inference of our Mishnah corresponds with a brisa, which says the same thing. Oila ve'emureh mitzdaref from the kazayis. The basar of the oila can be mitzdaref, can be combined, joined together with its emurim for a kazayis requirement regarding many applications. First of all, the obvious one, ma'ala b'chutz, l'alosim b'chutz, is chayiv, takes its piece outside, and also regarding the following. Now, this is an interesting point, that just as you can combine the basar of the oila with the emurin regarding ma'ala b'chutz, as explained, likewise regarding pigul, noiser, and tummy. If the oila is pigul, and one eats a kazayis, he's chayiv kares, even if that kazayis was comprised of partially a basar component as well. Likewise, if it's noiser, the same. Likewise, if he's tummy and he ate it, you can be mitzarif the basar with a murin for the shir kazayis. It sounds from this brisa, this arrangement only works by the oila, which corresponds to our Mishnah, that only the basar of the oila can be mitzarif with a murin. Now, the Gemara will sort of focus on the second part of what we just said. So the first part is pretty simple. Bishloim ha'alos. Certainly, when it comes to ma'ala, only the basar of the oila, which is meant for mizbeach, which is offerable material, can be mitzdaref. Oila the kol, oila which is meant to be completely burnt in, the basar of the oila qualifies for ma'ala b'chutz. But a shlamim, where the basar is meant for consumption, it doesn't qualify to get you to the kazayis. But what about the second part of the brayso? Ela pigol v'noiser v'tamei. Regarding those halachas, my time. What's the difference? Just as the basar of oila can qualify and is considered pigol noiser v'tamei, likewise the basar of shlamim. In fact, we have a mishnah that says it works. But it's none. Kol ha'pigulin, all materials which are pigul, mitzdarfen, can be joined together to get you a kazayis. And hold them accountable and liable for eating that kazayis. The same with noiser. V'chol ha'nisur mitzdarfen. And a minute ago we say that when it comes to the basar of shlamim, it doesn't work. You can't join it together, you can't use it towards the kazayis of pigul v'noiser. We have a double contradiction, one regarding the eligibility of the basar shlamim regarding pigul, and one regarding noiser. Kasha pigul a pigul, kasha noiser a noiser. We have a apparent contradiction regarding the status of the basar shlamim regarding pigul. Here it says it works, here it says it doesn't, and same regarding noiser. Answers the Gemara. They're talking about different things. It's not a question at all. Pigul a pigul kasha. Regarding the question of pigul, the answer is as follows. Kan be pigul. In the Mishnah, which says that the basar of shlamim can count towards the kazayis of pigul, that's regarding eating pigul material. Yeah, if the shlamim happens to be pigul because it was processed wrongly, if one eats a kazayis of that carbon comprised of, combined with basar and ibur and his chayiv, can be machshevas pigul. The earlier brayso which says that the basar of shlamim does not qualify for pigul, that's regarding generating the pigul. He does a shchita, thinking, planning, plotting to feed the imurin to the mizbeach tomorrow. That makes it pigul. Thinking that he's going to feed the basar next week to the people. That's pigul. But he can't take a half and a half. If he should say, look, I'm doing this with the intent of feeding half a zayis of the imurin to the mizbeach tomorrow and half a zayis of the basar next week, you can't combine. It needs to be a kazayis of a specific, particular type of consumption at once. You can't combine two types of consumption to create the pigul. That's what it means. So in contrast to oila, where it works, you can combine because there, basar and imurin really share the same destiny. They have the same label, so to speak. They're both for the mizbeach. So if he's planning on feeding the mizbeach a kazayis of this carbon tomorrow, even if it's combined, a little basar, a little imurin, they're both considered the same type of material as far as we're concerned, and you can generate pigul. But not by shlamim, where the basar has a different destiny than the imurin. It's meant for personal consumption. Imurin are meant for the mizbeach. You can't join and combine the two. Likewise, noiser and noiser lekash. Regarding the other question of noiser, can the basar or shlamim qualify? And can it be joined together with the imurin? Lekash answers like this. Kan b'noiser. When the Mishnah says you could, that's if the shlamim is noiser. And if he sits down and has a kazayis, which is half imurin, half basar, of course he's chayiv. Kan, where it says that you can't combine b'shenei toisru, ad shelo nizruk adam, that's talking about a totally different topic. We're going to be going like the shita of Rabbi Shua, that you can only do zrika if you have some carbon material sitting and available. But let's say a tornado came and just blew away the car, it's gone, it's burnt, it's destroyed. You can't do zrika. You need to have a kazayis of basar here, or a kazayis of the chelev, of the shlamim. And in that sense, we say you can't combine. If you only have a half a zayis of basar left over, half a zayis of imurin, that's not really considered an existing entity. Because there are different components, different worlds. This is for the mizbeach, this is for personal consumption. And that's what the brayso meant. When it comes to noiser, in this case it doesn't mean, the classic noiser, it means leftover. What have you salvaged? What's left behind after a tornado came along? Do you have a kazayas of the shlamim? Yeah, but is that kazayas half meat, half emur? It doesn't count. But by oila it does, because by the oila, as we said, the emur and the basar really are one and the same entity. We're evaluating what was left over, what was left behind before zrika. Will it allow us to continue with the zrika? Umani Rabbi Shoyi, it's going like the shita. Son Rabbi Shoyi, Imer, Kol Zevachim shebeTorah, all karbanos in the Torah shenashtayben kazayis basar. As long as you have a kazayis basar left over, or a kazayis chelav, that gives you the green light to do zrika. Zerikas adam, you could continue processing the carbon. However, if it's only half a zayis, chatz zayis basar, or a half a zayis of chelav, even if it's half and half, right? Chatz zayis basar, but chatz zayis chelav. In the zerikas adam, even if you have a half, half of basar, half of chelav, you can't do zrika, right? Because you don't have a full amount of either one. But by the oila, it's different. By the oila, the basar is treated just like the imurim. It's all for the mizbeach. Why? It all shares the same destiny, the same address, the same mizbeach. And the Brisa concludes, mincha. You should know by the mincha, afilu kula kayemus le'yizrik. Even if the entire mincha is here, you can't do zrika. What do you mean, zrika? Mincha? Mincha's dough. There's no zrika, there's no blood. Mincha ma'avidta. How does the mincha fit into this whole discussion? Amar Papa, he means like this. You have an animal carbon. You want to do zrika, and suddenly it all disappeared on you. All you have is the blood. Could you continue? No. But what if you have the mincha sitting here? Mincha accompanies every carbon. Is that sufficient to be considered as though the carbon is present? The answer is no. Because the mincha, although it does accompany the carbon, it is a separate entity. Having that around is not considered having the carbon present. Amra Papa minchas nesacham habayim azach, which comes along with the carbon. Having that here is not sufficient. You need a kazayis of the actual animal itself, basar or chelev, or by the oila half a kazayis basar, half kazayis chelev also works, but not by the shlam. Okay, let's do a quick chazara. So mala b'chutz applies to all types of carbon materials which have some sort of relation to the mizbeach, even though they're currently apostle, but they're still somewhat connected to the mizbeach. You take them outside, his chayiv for mala b'chutz. It needs to be at least a kazayis. Regarding using the basar, well, by the oila it works, but not by the shlam. Continues the mission. So we spoke about a kazayis of the oila being sufficient to hold them accountable. What about a kazayis of hakaimetz, of the scoop of the curb of the mincha, alavoina, vakteres, minchas kayanim, minchas kayan moshiach, minchas nesachim? What about all these non-animal materials? Shehikriv ma'achad mehen, me'echad mehen kazayis b'chutz. He does mal b'chutz on these items, but only a kazayis. So the kaimetz, let's say, it's comprised of 2 kazayisim. He did a kazayis outside. He's still chayiv. According to the Rabbanon, a kazayis of a haktorah in these cases qualifies as an act of haktorah. Mala b'chutz is chayiv. Well, as a poiter says no, you're exempt at sheyakriv es kulan unless he does the full kaimetz outside or the full k'torah. It's not a proper haktorah. Rashi explains, according to a Rebbe Lezer, just as when it's done inside in the Beis HaMikdash, it's only considered a properly executed haktorah. If the entire kaimetz, levayin, etc. was done, was burnt on the mizbeach. Likewise, on the flip side, outside, mala b'chutz, which is sort of a parallel act, right? Mala b'chutz, by definition, entails, doing something which would have been done inside. Instead, it was done outside. So Rebbe Lezer holds, kazayis is not considered an act of haktorah, not inside nor outside. Well, as a point, Achiyakar is cool unless he does the entire, required amount. However, even he agrees in the following case. Suppose he started the Torahs inside, and he has a little bit left over, a kazayis left over. He takes that outside. In that case, even Rebbe Lezer agrees it qualifies because that's the completion of the act of haktorah, and therefore it has that extra value, and is considered. He started inside. V'shir ben kazayis, leftover kazayis. V'kiviya b'chutz, and took that outside. Is chayiv. Continues the Mishnah. V'kulan, in all cases, shechasru kosher v'kiviya b'chutz pater. Even the Rabban who consider kazayis of the kaimetz or the kteris as qualifying for mala b'chutz. But let's say something went missing. A little bit of the kaimetz, a little bit of the kteris went missing. It disappeared. And then he took a kazayis of it outside. He's pater because, as Rashi explains, when something goes missing of the mincha or etc., it becomes pasul. So, show's over. There's no chiyav mala b'chutz anymore. Concludes the Mishnah. Hamakriv or hamala kachim v'murim b'chutz chayav. Rashi explains this to me like this. If he takes the basar of a carbon of a shlamim, attached to it are the imurim, the fats or whatever, and takes it outside, he's chayiv, despite the fact that it's sitting with the meat. It's not considered interference. And if he does it, he's chayiv because the chayla was offered outside. Continues the Gemara. Tana Rabbanan. So we're going to focus on the Ketores. And as we learned in the Mishnah, according to Shittas Chachamim, the Chiyav of Mala B'chutz applies even to a Kazayis of Ketores B'chutz. According to Rebbe Lezer, no, unless he does the entire dose, so to speak. Tana Rabbanan, here comes a brayso. Hamakter Kazayis B'chutz. He takes a Kazayis of the Ketores outside Chayav. And the brayso continues with sort of cryptic words. Chatzi pras. Pras is the amount of keteris that was typically offered in the Beis Hamikdash. Pras. Pras means a half of a mana, the weight of 100 coins. So it's 50 coins, the weight of 50 coins. They used to measure volume by weight, right? So pras is the term used to describe the sheer, the volume, the amount of keteris that was brought in the Beis Hamikdash in the morning and also at night, right? So suppose he has less than that. We call it half. Let's say half. Part of the required amount. Chatzi pras. Bifnem. He does it in the Beis Hamikdash. Pater is exempt. What does that mean? He's exempt. Why would he be? Says the more. So at this point we figure, when we say pater, my pater, it means pater zor. Should a zor, a non-kain, offer the keteris, something he shouldn't be doing, burning the keteris in the Beis Hamikdash, he's pater. The question is, why is he pater? A zar has no business doing this. He should be chayiv misa. My pater zar. What does pater mean? The zar is pater. Amai, why is he pater? Haktari. We just said that a kazayis of keteris qualifies as an act of aktar outside. So if it's done inside, even if it's less than the ideal amount, the zar has now offered keteris. He's chayiv misa. Rav Zera, Rav Chizda, Rav Yirma, Rav Abba, Rav. My pater, when pater is said in this brayso, it means like this, pater tzibur, that the public becomes pater, exempt. Although ideally should have a full amount, but it's not really required min ha-Torah, even a kazayis qualifies. So they did their job, they did the mitzvah. That's what the brayso means. Okay, so it works both ways. Kazayis of Torah qualifies as a proper act of aktorah in the Beis Hamikdash. They're yaitse, they fulfill their obligation, and on the flip side, if it's taken outside, there's mala b'chutz. Now comes a question. If there's anything to ask on this brayso, it's as follows. I'm bothered as follows. What is Rebbe Lezer's opinion on all this? The fact is, Rav explained on this brayso, I feel Rebbe Lezer moide regarding this halacha. Even Rebbe Lezer agrees. Even Rebbe Lezer in the Mishnah seems to say that kazayis doesn't cut it. But here, he would agree that if they did a kazayis in the heichal der yaitze, their mitzvah aktor. How could you say that? The Rebbe Lezer lav aktor hi kamar. How does that jive with Rebbe Lezer in the Mishnah, who seems to say that no, merely a kazayis of k'toris, it's not the required amount. It's not called mala b'chutz, it's not a proper aktorah. How does that work? Amar Rav. So Rav, let me explain it to you. We all know that there were two locations where they would offer k'toris. in the Heichel, on the Mizbeach HaZav. Let's call that the external Haktarah. And once a year on Yom Kippur, in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, by the Aron, that's the internal Haktarah. Says Rabbah, when we allow them to pass with merely a kazayis, that's in the Heichel. Because in Torah, you don't really need there's no sheer requirement in Torah, although the Chachamim interpreted it to mean a pras and a larger amount, but in Torah you can get away even with a kazayis. The question is only regarding the Kodesh HaKadoshim, where it says Melech Chafna. The Torah speaks about the kohen scooping it in both scoops, in both double handful. How critical is that amount? That's the question. Amar Rabba, B'Torah da Heichel. Torahs in the Heichel on a daily basis, the Kuli Amalei Pli all agree you can get away with a kazayis. And that's what the Brisa was just talking about. Okay, so even if Blazer agrees, in this case a kazayis is considered Haktarah. He pligi. However, their discussion in our Mishnah, where in fact Blazer says no, kazayis doesn't do the trick. He pligi b'Torah defnim, that talking about Torah internally in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. The Mar Savar Melech Chafnav Dafka. Blazer says Melech Chafnav is non-negotiable, handful. Umar Savar Melech Chafnav Dafka. Chacham say, listen, ideally you should have that amount, but the Diavadim Kazayis qualifies. And on the flip side, if it's done outside, it's Malabachut and he's Chayiv. Only Abai responds to Rabbah. How could you say that according to Chachamim, Melech Chafnav, which is stated in the Torah as the amount of Torahs needed for the Kodesh HaKadosh, you're going to tell me it's not. It's lav dafka. It's not critical. Only Abayiva kiksiva chuka. The pasuk says chukas olam, absoluteness. B'Torah defnim d'chsiv is speaking actually about Torah in the Kodesh HaKadosh. How could you say it's not miyakev? It's not, Elon Abayi. So Abayi will offer his pshat in the Gemara. He says like this. I agree that the external Haktarah, meaning in the Heichel, kazayis works. I'm also arguing that Haktarah b'pnim needs a Melech Chafnav. The question will be, if he takes the Haktarahs meant for the Kodesh HaKadoshim and he does it outside, does it, malabachus? That's going to be the question. What law do we give it? What rule do we apply? Do we apply the kazayis Heichel rule? Or the Melech Chafnav, Kodesh HaKadoshim rule? How much does one need to do outside to be chayiv for malabachutz? B'Torah b'fnim kol amalei pligi, all agree. On Yom Kippur you need Melech Chafnav, non-negotiable. Ki pligi b'Torah the chutz. The question will be, if he takes that Torah is meant for inside, where the prescribed amount is Melech Chafnav, and does it outside the Beis HaMikdash, does the kazayis trigger the consequence, the chiyuv of malabachutz? Mar Savay Afin Pnim Chutz. Tanakama says, we can learn the Pnim from the Chutz. Just like by the external Torahs, a Kazayis qualifies. Likewise, if he takes some of the internal Torahs and does it outside, a Kazayis qualifies for liability. Mar Savay Afin, Rabbi says you can't compare inside to outside, the Kodesh HaKadoshim to the Heichel, two different types of Torahs. Sure, the Torahs of the Heichel, where if done properly, with the kazayis works, of course, if that's taken outside is chayiv kazayis, but Torah's pnim, the Kodesh HaKadoshim, where he's supposed to have Melech Chafnav, if it takes less than that outside, he's not chayiv. Amar Rav. According to you, the Rabbanan are comparing pnim to chutz, Kodesh HaKadoshim to the Heichel. We see elsewhere that they don't compare materials to learn one from the other. Even when it comes to two materials which are both externals, meant for the Mizbeach HaChitzah, the Chacham don't share information, don't learn one from the other regarding amounts and qualifications. How could you say that they learn this Torah from that one, the Kodesh HaKadoshim from the Heichel? Mahi, when you say the Chacham don't compare materials, what do you mean? The Sani Bavabraisa, Yochel, Hamal Pachas, Bekazayis Kaimets. So what if a person takes less than a Kazayis of the Kaimets and does it outside? Or less than a kazayis of the imurin, or less than the standard requirement for the 3 lug of the wine or 3 lug of the water. Pachas b'kazayis kaimis, pachas b'kazayis imurin, v'menasach pachas b'sheish lug in yain, pachas b'sheish lug in mayim. Does all this outside, but it's less than the qualifying amount. Yechayiv zichayiv. Talmud Bavli no. La'asis tells you he did something which typically would qualify internally. It does it outside, but this amount qualifies as aktorah. Allah shalim chayv is only chayv for a complete amount. Not an incomplete amount. Let's think for a second. One case was less than 3 lug of wine. You know how many kazayas amounts are fit into a 2 lug container of wine? Way more than 1 kazayas. So although he hasn't achieved a 3 lug amount, but certainly if you measure it in terms of the kazayas amounts, which is the amount for the kaimets and all, there's plenty in there. There's ample amount for kazayas. What can you compare the wine to the kaimets, which qualifies by kazayas? So although it's less than 3 lug of wine, how many amounts of kazayas are in that bucket of wine? Many. Don't compare one to the other. I say, well, just as when he's makter kazayas of kaimet, he's chayiv. Likewise, a kazayas of wine, you don't compare. So why should you compare this keteris to that keteris? And by the way, the Gemara soon will tell us, Rav Ashi will provide an answer on this. He'll say, well, you can't compare wine to a kaimet. Wine is poured, a kaimet is burnt, a different type of system. You can't compare, but perhaps you could compare. It's fair to say that we compare 2 types of keteris, although they're meant for different locations, but after all, it's the same type of material, so it can be suggested that they do compare and learn one from the other. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, we have Rava's teretz. Rava says, okay, I'm not in agreement with this teretz. Let me offer my explanation. Elama Rava. So let's go back to the question on hand. In the Mishnah, Rav Eliezer says, merely a kazayas of teretz outside is not chay, unless he does the full amount. And the Brisa seems to say even a kazayas qualifies as an act of aktar. Says Rav, I'll tell you what's going on. Certainly the keteris of the hechel, a kazayas works. Yeah. Typically. But in the Mishnah where it says it doesn't, it's referring to a very specific circumstance. What happened was, he took we said before that the pras is the term used to describe the full amount of keteris, right? And, a little bit this, a little that, chatzi, but they were put together. So the 2 halves, so to speak, the 2 portions of this pras had been placed together in one container. In one container, they were sort of designated and established as one entity. And the question is, how much are they bound to each other? Shall we say that once they're together in a kli, they become one entity? And as such, he has only fulfilled haktorah in the heichel, or on the flip side, it is only considered an act of mala b'chutz if the entire entity, the entire amount was involved, but not only part of it. Part of it doesn't work. Mar savar kvius mana milsi. We have to reckon with the fact that they were both tied together in one kli. Mar savar la milsi. Rabbanan say no. Kazai still works. Even though they had been put in the kli, it doesn't really bind them to each other. And even a kazai is considered aktorah, bifnim, or b'chutz. Amar Rava, says Rava, as a side point, hasha, l'man da'amar kvius d'man v'lei klumu. So now, according to the Chachamim, who don't reckon with this fact, the fact that it was placed in a kli, this placement factor is not a factor. If so, imagine the following case: kava shisha lepar. He placed 6 lug of wine in the same container to be poured together with the cow carbon, which is the required amount for the par. He pulled out 4 lug and took it outside the Beis Hamikdash. Chayiv is chayiv for that, even though he only took part of the content here. Because 4 are suitable for the ram carbon, so it's a prescribed amount for the aisle, so qualifies as mala b'chutz, is chayiv, despite the fact that it's only part of the kli's content. That's irrelevant. As long as this amount is a qualifying amount, we disregard that it was in a kli with a greater amount. And likewise, kavar ba la'il, he placed 4 lug, for the aisle and the kli. Umashman shloisha, he pulled out 3. V'kriv b'chutz and did it outside his chayiv. Shiruin l'kev, it was meant for a sheep. Again, we disregard the fact that it was had been, together with more in the kli. But chasru koshu, if a little bit of this rilu goes missing, then it's below any qualifying amount. Bikrivim b'chutz pater, does it outside his pater because it's not suitable for any aktar b'fnim. Now let's just go back to that kasha we had. How could you compare, keteris to keteris if we don't even compare, wine to a kaimetz? Rav Ashi Amar, there's a difference between the two equations. Nisuch me aktara lo yafu rabbanon. They don't compare wine to aktara. Even though they're both meant for the external mizbeach lo yafu, they don't compare. Aktara yafi afkav the chutz mipnim. But certainly we can say that they compare one keteris to the other keteris. The heichel, the KosherTube to the heichel, even though this is the one on the outside, this is the one on the inside. Right? Avgav the chutz mipnim. Even though you're comparing the keteris of the heichel to the keteris of the KosherTube, but they're both on the same track, close enough, and comparable to each other. So according to Rav Ashi, we stick with the earlier teretz. That when it comes to the keteris of the heichel, certainly a kazayis is considered haktar b'fnim or b'chutz. And machlekes pertains to the keteris of the KosherTube, which was taken outside. Do we say we give it the same shiur as the kazayis of the heichel? Do we say no, since it's from the KosherTube, which has a bigger shiur, he's only chayiv of malo achutz if he does the full amount? And that's the machlekes Rebbe Lezer and Rabbanan now Mishnah. Okay, so again we had a Mishnah where there's machlekes regarding many items, including the keteris. Chacham say even a kazayis b'chutz is chayiv. Lezer says pater. What about the brayso, which seems to say that all agree kazayis of keteris is considered haktorah? So we had one pshat. We had Abaye's pshat, as we just reviewed, and we have Rava's pshat. They all agree kazayis really works, but the Mishnah was speaking that it was placed together with a larger amount in the kli. The question is whether they're bound to each other, or perhaps even a kazayis is considered aktar regardless. In the previous sugi we discussed the various materials, different types of karbonis, kachim ksherim, kachim sulim, where malo b'chutz is chayiv. Regarding kazayis of the basar with the imurim, that only works by the oila, not by the shlomi. Okay, all the best to you, and B'suras Tayvis Hatzlacha Rav.